Yeah, how's Florida?
Oh, it's fine, but I've just been attending the conference the whole time, and Jen's here, and we're gonna hit the pool after this meeting. We're gonna go. Y'all remember Jen?
Tell her I said, hey,
Okay, I will.
where in Florida are you?
Orlando.
Oh, well, okay. Oh, I just came from Florida. I was in Jacksonville, Tallahassee. Tomorrow, about
We spent February in
Right, right,
St.
yeah.
Thomas Island.
So we'll try to move it along.
Georgia.
I don't know. Taylor has a dead stop at 5. Let's see if we can get started. And when Melissa comes, she will. We will continue, but I think we can get started. Once Zach sits down. Cause he's the man in control over there. Okay, Angela, I have 3:30, so let us know when you're ready to start recording.
In the chat, Angela said good to go.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody to the Buncombe County, North Carolina Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee meeting for April 23rd, 2025. We have most everyone but one member here, so we're going to get started with kind of the housekeeping. So approve or revise the agenda. I will say I need to revise the agenda because the one I sent out said March, not April. So if there are any other revisions, please let us know. Otherwise, we will approve the agenda. Okay, agenda approved. Approve or revise the meeting minutes. Any revisions or deletions or corrections? Okay, hearing none. The minutes are approved. Okay, let's jump right in. As I said in my email, this time of year is always difficult, but I think this go round is the most difficult that I've experienced.
List is walking.
Oh, cool. That's okay, come on.
Do you go straight to the Excel or do units of service?
Let's, I want to do the units of service and the Buncombe County Supplemental Aging Funds, which I have, which people in the room have copies of. I think if we start with the block grant units of service that Zach sends us. What you can see, and I focus at this time of the year on the right side of the chart, the table, I mean. And so the third column in from the right, where it shows you the percentage of grants served. Yeah, that was, yeah, thanks, Zach. I just, we just can't forget that the storm had such an impact on these providers. And so for example, the congregate meal sites. I mean, they're only 21% used, but were shut down because of the storm.
Did they lose any sites
Yeah,
because of the storm?
Yeah, Lakeview, that Black Mountain got damaged, so they had to wait for repairs to be done there. And then if that wasn't bad enough, I think 3 of the 4 meal sites had to do lead testing for their pipes. So that kept them, delayed even further. Some were moved to pick up meals only and things like that. But I think they are, to my knowledge, they're back in full force now and they're just trying to catch up. So yeah.
so I struggle with the Council on Aging's meals. Cause I know of what happened. One thing, if you look at the bottom, towards the bottom with the non-unit based services. And see that the United Community Development Mountain Housing still has no expenditures. That's 1, 2, the 4th from the bottom. And to me, that kind of points out that new providers coming into this grant process and receiving grants could use some more assistance to get started. I'm not saying that they aren't doing a good job. I'm just saying that they tend to struggle. And if you notice, the United Community Development did not apply again. So I guess Dee assumed that it wasn't worth all the aggravation.
Yeah, she only used just under $300 and is planning to give the rest back.
Is it because they struggle with the bureaucracy involved in getting the actual grant money to pay for the things that they're doing, or is it more complicated than that?
My impression is it's more like the insurance, and maybe Billy can speak more to it, but getting the insurance and understanding the reporting systems and the contracting details. Billy, do you have any comment on that? On why the people?
Yes, so I had reached out to Dee recently to get a mid-year report because I was compiling it for this committee, and she emailed it back, and she said the reason why they haven't used the funding is that she's having a hard time with the ARM system. And I offered that when I got back from the conference the ARM system, even though they have like documents explaining how to use it, it's not the easiest database to use. And I offered, like, when I get back next week, to sit with her. And even though housing and home improvement category is different from in-home aid or congregate dining, which I used to do, that I could help her with it. And she said no. So I think that was her biggest frustration.
Were there any services provided at all?
Yes, one service that was under $300.
Okay. I mean, it may also be she just did not have a good enough business plan before she applied.
I don't know.
I mean, those are things that I would think you would take into consideration.
Well, in future years, when we see new providers come on, just want to be able to give them enough support and guidance so that they can actually use the money. Now, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but the block grant money is, I mean, it typically, I mean, at the end of the year, there's a scramble. But is it more or less difficult than the contracting side, say for the Buncombe County Supplemental Aging Funds, or can you not speak to that?
In regards to,
Like moving money around?
I mean, it's as simple as getting a revised 732 from the providers, and that goes through Billy and Allison, because it has to be signed by them and their higher ups as well. And usually I go off of whenever they submit the revised 732, if all information looks correct, I'll go ahead and put it into ARMS, because if I wait for signatures, sometimes the fiscal year is done by then. So, that's nothing to Billy and her team. It's just that there's a lot of, hoops that they have to jump through to get certain signatures on things. But yeah, I would say it's fairly easy, on my end, because towards the end of the year, whenever that shuffle comes along, I pretty much tell them, like, you didn't use all your funding, here's what you did use, fill out your budget to look like this and send it back. And then when it comes to reallocating that funding for the third quarter, or rather for the fourth quarter, it's kind of y'all's decision how you want to do that. But at the very end of the fiscal year, I'm concerned about just getting 100% spent, because we want to make sure that we send nothing back. If we send stuff back, it looks like we don't need it.
Right.
So, I still loop in Susan and Billy on those last minute decisions. And, we get guidance and how, it should be spent and everything, but, at the end, it's just such a mad dash to the finish line that it's hard to include every single person's input on it.
But I think right now, I mean, we have 3 more months to go in the fiscal year, April, May and June. We have, for example, Jewish Family Services is 150%. Mountain Mobility Transportation is at 99. General Transportation is at 100. 100% for Land to Sky Senior Companion, 128% for the looks like in-home aid level 1. And then, of course, fiscal legal always knocks it out of the ballpark. It's 329%. So I'm thinking that within, and down at the bottom, you'll see the Jewish Family Services is at 94%. So I think my feeling, and y'all can chime in, is that the Buncombe County funds, we can kind of set aside and assume we can move those around and focus more on the Buncombe County supplemental aging.
Is there any, given how extraordinary the leave was, is there any wiggle rooms? I think specifically of the congregate nutrition. Are they going to be able to spend all the money in the remaining 3 months?
Given the projections that I see, no.
And there's no exception that can be made to let them keep those funds and carry them through? No. Okay.
Because the HCCBG funding is a year-by-year allocation, so it only remains within that fiscal year. It can't be
No exceptions.
grandfathered in. Yeah, no exceptions.
And Billy, isn't that the same for Buncombe County? That we can't allow funding to go into the next fiscal year?
That's correct. Yes.
So going forward to the Buncombe County supplemental aging fund chart. One thing I want to remind everybody is that the current allocation numbers at the top represent a 25% decrease if you recall, in January, the county basically just said everybody gets a 25% cut. And who took the cut mostly was in-home aid. And, let's see, I think it was 4,000 from day stay.
Yes,
So it was like 121 from in-home aid and the 4,000 from day stay. So now, if you had a chance to read all my numerous emails that I forwarded to you, I'm focused on really in-home aid at 22% spent. And knowing that this money will go away, and like Zach said, if we don't spend it, people think we don't need it. The letter from the email from Allison was, we believe we have $23,000 of Buncombe County supplementation funds that the committee will be able to reallocate to another organization. So we can start there. And we can see that On Track has already overspent. And I'm not sure, I mean, I would think April, because it's tax season, they would have an increase in need. And day stay is pretty close at 94%. So anyone have any, Billy, have you heard from anybody about they could give up money, or, I mean, Unite, I guess that's a question for me, another new provider.
I emailed Unite, last week, and, they said that they were gonna be discussing it this week, and they haven't gotten back to me about, because I told them I needed the information by this meeting, but, there's been, some of the staff has been out, the two people I communicate with, so, I didn't have that, they didn't respond back to me by today, so when I get that information, I'll send you an email, because I did ask, were they gonna be using their whole total allocation?
Are we assuming and thinking about this, that 23,000 is solid in terms of what Allison's made that available?
Right. That's my assumption. Billy, is that correct? Did you hear Dan? You're on mute.
Yeah, I think it was solid. I think they if I recall correctly, the email said that, and I did talk to Allison, they might need $10,000, but I think to hold on to $10,000, but right now she said that they'd be able to give up 23,000.
Certainly day stay and On Track looks like they're gonna blow through all this money. Working Wheels is high, memory care, I'm gonna just guess that they could probably use some, in Evelyn Charities maybe. Maybe we survey them and, is there any one of them who's been, to this rodeo before? Have any of them asked, if there are gonna be any extra leftover dollars?
Well, Evelyn is new to this,
Right.
that's a new one.
Right.
Daystay Daystay gave up 4,000, but it looks like they could have used it. And On Track looks like they could use it. Still a little struggling with the math on in-home aid, but I'm willing to go with the 23,000 is solid that we can reallocate at this point.
Yeah, it's solid. Yeah, Allison said they were keeping, that if we give up in-home aid $23,000, then that leaves an in-home aid program an extra $10,000 in case they have to open like more referrals from the APS program between now and June 30th. So if something happens and they don't open more referrals, then the in-home aid would have an additional $10,000 to give back by the end of June.
So basically, it's the 109 less the 85, and then she's given up 23. I don't know, I looked at it as giving Daystay 5,000 and On Track 18. I don't know, I just kind of throwing that out there.
Sounds fair enough. Good with that.
Any discussion? Greg, what do you think? What do you think? Otherwise, anybody?
Want a motion for that? Who is that?
If there's no further discussion, we can make a motion.
So moved.
So moved to provide of the 23,000, 5,000 to Daystay and 18 to On Track. Do I have a second?
Second.
Suzanne, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved unanimously. Okay. I'm sure this will continue, in the next month with the reallocation shuffle. What the difficult part today is going to be, the requirement to finalize the fiscal year 2026 allocations. So I really appreciate everybody's hard work in getting these numbers to me. What I have done like in the past, anonymously put everybody's information into the spreadsheet. The column all the way to the right is an average. And I gave you these little pieces of paper so that you could have a straight edge to be able to look at this chart. So one thing I did this right before I came here, I looked at the providers that had the most dollars allocated on average. So that was the in-home aid program, Meals on Wheels, congregate dining at Council on Aging. And then kind of behind those two or three were the day mountain care, day health and day care, and information and options counseling from Buncombe County. So we allocated 2 hours for today to kind of give you all an opportunity to share your thoughts, lobby for the different programs you think are in need more than others, so, see, does anybody want to start?
Yeah, I will. I'm happy to do that. The Center for Conscious Living and Dying, which I understood to be what it is, essentially like hospice, helping people at the back end. And I'm the only one who wanted to fund it, so I'm curious why the rest of you all thought this is something we should pass on now.
You know, and my approach to this was from a utilitarian perspective. I looked at the funds and said, what are the most important programs? And that perspective means greatest good for the greatest number. So I have a lot of zeros in mind because I just identified the larger programs, saying that's where I would start. I'm not sure it's where I will end, but it fits with your question in terms of I didn't fund that program because it's small. It doesn't reach great numbers of people. Same thing true for both the programs of Jewish Family Services. They're important. What they do is important, but are other programs more important because they reach greater numbers of people? That's just one way to look at it.
Yeah, no, it's not one I would argue against either.
And I think that's probably the same way I felt about it. It's an awful lot of money
For what it is.
for not that much. Not to say it's not important
Right.
or valuable, but just in terms of, you know, what goes where. It seems like a lot of the other programs are much more essential and help more people.
It's a reasonable argument. I was dealing with funerals when they were dealing with this, so I had dying in
Yeah.
my head, so.
And I think too, if our goal is to help residents of Buncombe County age in place safely at home, I'm not saying it's not important, just
Mhm.
like Eileen said, but it's not that much of a focus as much as others are.
The ones who are gonna be around for 5 minutes, to put it less delicately.
My approach was. This is my fourth go around doing this, and it's never anything but never like this. This is totally different than before. So to think of adding in another grantee, this is like the least likely time that I would add in someone who hadn't applied before. Because if you do give them in what they asked for, 277 is a lot of money, especially in this situation. So you're not gonna fund it with like $10,000, you're gonna fund it somewhere in the ballpark of what they asked, or not at all to me. And then to do that would be saying to the other ones that we deemed as valid last year, well, you're not valid this year because we're cutting you to fund this. So basically it came down to, essentially I looked at their FY25 allocation, increased it by about 1%, because that's what it ended up being, and then rounded from there to the number.
You know, I would suggest that when you average out for that one, it's the 19,000 and change. And you just zero that out.
So. Well, yeah, you zero it out, but the reality is where would that 154,000? Where would you, or where would the group wanna move it?
I mean, it ends up with the average only being 19,000,
Mm-hmm.
and so what we really have to allocate at the end would be 25,000, right?
So
19 and 6.
Well,
Right.
let's do,
Yeah.
let Zach go to column H, the 154, and put 0 there. Okay, so now we have 12,000. If you see to the bottom right,
Okay.
so that's what we have to allocate,
So could I add just another dimension
please.
to our conversation? And that is, what obligation do we have to fund programs that we have historically funded? I'm thinking of things like the Jewish Family Services. That's one way to look at it, or are there programs that one of their, maybe the only thing that's on here that is direct mental health for seniors is that program. So I'm just thinking other dimensions about where would that money go?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think we have an obligation to any particular organization. I think our obligation is to determine the best distribution of the available funds, given the organizations that asked and what they do to serve people in Buncombe County.
Would it be worth taking a quick run through this spreadsheet and comparing last year's or the current year's allocation to the average? And maybe flag those, there may be someone that we funded frequently and we think that their service is so critical that we don't want to give them less than we gave them last year, or give them money that's too far below the general ballpark of what they've had in the past.
So Zach, can you hide those? Can you hide go up and hide or?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the function, hide
Mhm.
function? Yeah, not hide the average, but hide everybody's comment. And we can hold our papers.
Getting ready to turn to the glass.
Yes, yeah, we can fold our papers.
I'll need those.
I have mine in the car also.
Okay. And while we're folding our papers, I will point out, as an answer to one of our questions, the Land of Sky Community Health Care Workers indicated that the block grant is their only source of funding. And I think I have expressed this before, I find that that's a strategy that is perhaps not the best for any of these organizations. So I'm gonna shoot back to Suzanne with the comparison to the last year, this year.
Well, I need two different glasses, so I'll try to go off that, but if you look at Mountain Mobility, we're even, they have their 500,000, we don't have to worry about that. Mountain Care Transportation, 62,000 to 63,000, that's in the ballpark, the same flavor of number. In-home aid, they ask for a lot more. You're going 237 to 313, is it important enough to give it that much of an extra kick over last year? The
And-
answer may be yes.
But you have to remember that last year they got that plus Buncombe County supplemental aging funding.
Right.
So they were close to, I don't know, 450 or around there. I'm not positive that's the number, but yeah, they had
So
supplemental.
that's a number we highlight that with like a blue color to just the Buncombe County in-home aid, that one in the right, the 313.
Who liked?
Yeah, that's what that just is, so that we can sort of conceptually say, okay, that's when we maybe want to talk about again. Then the Elder Club, we go to 13,000 to 12,000. Jewish family, the counseling 13.9 to 14.7, close enough. Here's the community health worker, where they're only funding. They're, 43,000 this year to 38,000 maybe next year. I don't know what we think about that.
And then the next one down, senior companion, that was a new one last year. Just a point of interest.
Similar number. Meals on Wheels. For Meals on Wheels. 17,000, I think, is a lot of money to them, to your point. So I'm not so sure I'd wanna whack them 17,000. Here's Mountain Housing Opportunities, that's a little bit of a come down, but again, I don't know. I'm an agnostic on that one. I know, an older person and the heat goes out and they don't have enough money for an $8,000 repair to their heating system. To them, that's a significant, source of funding. Mountain Care Daycare, close. Mountain Care Day Health. Similar flavor of number. Fiscal Legal, I think in our discussions in the past, we've thought, they get a lot of money from a lot of sources. I'm not uncomfortable with giving them a big haircut this year, unless, don't get me wrong, I take what they do very seriously.
I wonder. So I'm thinking of, all I can think of is 328%. That's what they're at.
Yeah.
So like, I wonder if there's a strategy there, like, okay, we get this fund, we're gonna use this stuff up first. Before we go to these sources, that they prioritize their sources by how they
Well,
use
we
it.
do, I mean, they're probably counting everybody they serve over 60.
Yeah.
And they would be serving them without our money.
So if you look, well,
They don't have a specific program, and we're just funding people over 60. Or 65 or whatever it is.
Because that's if we're talking about, all of these services are bad, but some of them are critical to people's ability to be, not be hungry. Well, never mind homeless. But in a situation where the money is so incredibly tight, maybe it's a fiscal legal that has more resources. Maybe they're the one who takes a hit.
Yeah, we
This
kind
year.
of had a consensus on that before, I think.
yeah, we talked about that I believe we talked about it last meeting and even perhaps the meeting before. About the fact that there is a requirement that we fund at a level. And I think we said that level,
I wrote down 10 to 11,000 is my note.
10 to 11,000. Yeah, I think Zach looked at the numbers and kind of gave us a ballpark. So we could give them a really good haircut, or or not.
I'm okay with. Product from, I don't want to call it rich, but product from the rich to give to the board, such a. Do people have to qualify for Meals on Wheels? I mean, how do they,
So you would.
do we know how needs-based it is?
So I've had patients apply for it before, and my understanding in the past, it's been a while, so this could have changed since Helene, is that they can pay what they can pay. Now, I don't know if they verify income and that kind of.
That's what I was wondering.
So any home and community care block grant program, if the individual is going to receive the service through the block grant, there can be no means testing at all.
Do we know what?
Means testing. So, yeah, it should be someone who is living at Arrowhead Apartments could qualify for a meal. Someone who's living in Biltmore Forest can qualify for a meal. There should be no difference between the two. There is a waitlist prioritization tool that we encourage them to use. That was passed down from the state, however, it's not mandatory. So I think it's just whoever, unfortunately, the individual living in Biltmore Forest, if they have the money, they may be able to pay for their meal. Whereas the individual living at Arrowhead Apartments, they may have to get theirs for free through block grant funding and stuff, but it's supposed to be anybody who has paid into the tax system, period, can receive services through HCCBG funding.
At age requirement.
60.
And I think with Meals on Wheels, my only experience with it, was short-lived with an aunt in Florida. Who could afford to pay whatever was charged, but she had macular degeneration, she was blind, so she couldn't cook anymore. So that was the reason why, I had looked into Meals on Wheels, which had a wait list and it didn't work. We found another solution anyway, but that's where you get someone who might have the means to pay, but they need help with food because they can no longer procure or prepare foods for themselves because they're blind or whatever the issue is.
And then also, in my opinion, be where the community help, well, not the community health workers, the senior companion comes in, because maybe they can't even get to food.
Right.
Or they need a special diet, which is a whole other ball of wax with Meals on Wheels, because they don't do special meals, that, at least unless things have changed. But the senior companions can go shopping for the resident.
Just as we're looking to perhaps cut some people, and we're thinking about where that's gonna go, I'm just trying to squeeze down to really understand. How thinking of someone starving, could be toward the top, or somebody can't live on the home. I'm trying to prioritize, so I'm trying to understand the criteria for those things, to understand. Where we should send, what we take away from someone else.
Plus, Meals on Wheels also has not a giant, but a minor socializing capacity, because they train their volunteers to do more than just deliver meals.
They'll check on them when they go and deliver the meals. The other thing that I think that they're doing now is delivering some groceries too. But I could have drilled that.
They were through American Rescue Plan Act funding.
Okay.
There was a service that was able to be funded to provide groceries to individuals. They would send them, or rather, they would get the list from what that individual may need, and they would go shopping for them and deliver that for them.
No, I didn't.
That's gone, right?
I believe they spent through the ARPA funding. I don't know if it's continued through another funding source, but through ARPA, which is what I manage, it's done.
So how about unhiding? At this point? And let's focus on Pisgah, because if I look at this table and go across, and it looks like it starts at F, column F. That correctly. There.
60,000.
Yeah, 60. So it goes 60, 10, 11, 11, 75, 15, 11, and 10.
I'm just 60, and I'm certainly willing to dial that back.
Give us a number and we'll have Zach put it in.
Say 15.
I don't know if your screen is, if you have the Zoom on your computer.
No.
Yeah, yeah. So that brings them down to 19 and.
What we're generally thinking is those who are, the average currently is below what they were funded at last year, and that's kind of what we're looking to remedy.
Yeah,
kind of
and then,
priorities.
and then what should happen when Zach transfers back to his spreadsheet computer? Thank you. So we can go to and look at the bottom and see what additional funds we now have. So we have 18,000.
Be worth going through them and briefly debating whether we think we should give them more than last year. 'Cause that might be one way to handle this, to say, okay, we're gonna cap them at some relative number. We're gonna, give fiscal legal a significant haircut. And maybe just input ballpark numbers of, in the last column, hit the F9 key to see where we end up. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense. I'm wondering, I keep going back to Dan's comment earlier. And looking at some of the programs that. I hate, that we may have historically funded, but reach only a small portion of folks.
And we can, as we go through each one, we can say, you know what, the average here is maybe 1,000 or whatever, but under the circumstances, maybe we don't give them anything this year.
Are we back to hiding? Hiding the columns?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it, because Suzanne.
Zach, can you in column O? Right next to
Mhm.
N, maybe could we put our ballpark numbers there and then add them up?
Yeah.
Okay. Rather than erasing the averages right away.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
That's a good point.
So for transportation, I think we agree we're gonna keep it at $500,000.
We're stuck. Yeah. As much as I personally don't like it.
Yeah.
That commitment was made. So the first row is 500,000.
So Mountain Care. Last year, this 2025, they got roughly 62,000. The average is roughly 63 and change. We just want to give them a rounded 62,000 or 63,000.
So remind me, because this keeps coming to my mind, and maybe I just didn't have a complete grasp on it, our last meeting. But wasn't there something about transportation with adult daycare that we had to switch around something or something?
Last year, they failed to provide, last year, not this year, but last year, they typically in previous years had asked for money out of the two pots.
Okay.
And they failed to, do one of the grants in time. So that's why they asked for the 120.
I thought there was something.
Was
Yeah.
it? the
No, wait,
Unit rate?
Wait a minute, what is it, Billy? Was
I think what Melissa was talking about is at our last meeting, this has nothing to do with this FY26 funding, but at our last meeting, they asked about increasing the rate per trip from
Forgot about that.
$42 to 45, and the committee said that they were gonna make the decision this at this meeting, and I've reached out and told them that, and I'm sorry I don't remember it when we went over the units of service. But that might be what Melissa's thinking about, but I could
It
be
is
wrong.
exactly what I'm thinking about, and so, but I didn't remember that we said we were gonna come back to it.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
thank you for reminding us.
Yeah,
yes.
but how does that not, you're saying that doesn't affect this number at all, though? Because, I mean, would you, if they were able to get their numbers correct for units of service for fiscal year 26, then it would obviously be more than it was in 25, if we're comparing the 2 years, right?
Yeah, I guess it could play a part into it, yes.
So let's not forget, and we'll try to wrap up with, the discussion about increasing the rate for the transportation. Billy, if you'll keep us on track on that one, that'd be helpful. So back to, trying to figure out the fiscal year 2026 allocation.
Well, it's roughly a 7% increase if they do the rate increase. So this year, 62,000 is roughly equivalent to 66,000. If the only raise they get is based on going from 42 to 45 or whatever it is. I mean, do we want to give them more than that? Essentially the same flavor as last year. Or give them an even 63,000.
So the figure you said was 66,000?
Yeah,
That makes sense.
So if we okayed the rate increase, then their 62,000 is roughly 66,000.
Give it a try, put 66 in there, 66,000.
Okay, the in-home aid. This is a hard one.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you wanna come back to it? And look at the others? Cause the struggle with in-home aid is. The 237 was only for block grant, when in reality, they got block grant and Buncombe County supplemental aging funds. So you really can't compare the 237 to the 313.
right. Okay, so let's skip it for a minute.
Okay.
Jewish Family Elder Club, 13,000, 12,000. What do we think? 12,000 is close enough, but
Well, I think, going back to what I think Dan said about how many people get served. That's not a big program. I don't know what impact our money has on it.
All I remember is,
Yeah,
all I remember is Eileen and I went and they tried to put us into the elder club, but because we were two great old haired ladies. Not visiting the director.
Is that fingernail? Play bingo? No.
No, they, no, we don't. What about 10,000?
I think that sounds good.
about the counseling. Dan, what's your feeling on the counseling? 14,000, 14,000.
15,000.
I think, I think they, they do this by, I'm assuming that they do this, that they've got a counseling program. I don't know how much of it we fund. But even if the full amount, that's not gonna fund all of it, so we're buying hours. So I think whatever, for 14,000, 15,000 would. It would keep the only program focus we have on adult. Of mental health for older adults.
15,000?
Sure.
And I will say, as a fun fact, Jewish Family Services of Western North Carolina is the only agency in North Carolina that gets funded for mental health counseling through HCCBG.
Ah. Note to self on that one.
Mhm.
Did you say fun fact or fun fact?
But
FUND or FUN, is that what you're?
I thought he's sharp.
Yeah.
I was very shocked to learn that.
And here's the community health worker, we're the only funding source.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we fund it or not? Well, I personally feel like we can't not fund it. That's my personal opinion.
Am I correct in remembering this is the one where we have people in residential? that
Yeah.
help other people out more or less. Okay.
Mhm, mhm. It's, one of the apartment complexes.
Right.
It's
So
not
which one is this? Land of Sky.
Land of Sky Community Health Workers.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading
Wow.
those ones.
Yeah. So I would be remiss at. I don't know, I would almost keep them. I don't know,
Keep them flat at 43,000.
keep them flat. And then encourage, and then maybe encourage the individuals in charge of that to look elsewhere. For additional funding, so 43.
How long have we been funding them?
They've been funded for a long time. I wanna say. I don't know, I don't know, I
Since
know,
before I got into this position.
which has
They
been
haven't been able to find another funding source in all that amount of time.
I hear you.
It just makes you wonder, some groups we funded and then we've historically continued to fund. We wonder how they, or not particularly this group, but in general, how they changed the way they do things. And we don't, we took it, whatever they were doing, we said, yes, we just wonder if they're doing the same things now, if it's gone on for a while, so you wonder if it's valid, because if they're doing the same things, or if they're.
It's also possible, I think that they're so focused on the mission, and I remember meeting them, and I asked and I don't remember her name, but I asked her what keeps her up at night. And her response was, I can't empty the ocean a bucket at a time, let alone a thimble at a time. Going out looking for money and asking for money is something a lot of people have a hard time doing. Forget about personally, but in a job context. It's sort of a sales job, it's marketing, it's not. Where do I go to look for money? Who do I call? Not everybody's good at that, so I could see. How an excessive focus on the day-to-day without thinking ahead is something a lot of people could get caught up doing.
Well, the good news is that this is a Land of Sky program, which is institutionally has resources and capacity to look for money. I think what we're all concerned about is a lot of the money is going away. Oh, and for the money that isn't, there'll be increased demand for it.
Is them 20,000 maybe?
I don't know if I would cut them in half. What about bringing them down to 40?
I was thinking,
I'm looking at the wrong line, I'm sorry.
What were you thinking, Dan?
no, I was thinking the same thing around, around 40.
What are we
We're
under?
at 40.
Oh, we talking about community health workers or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that was where we put the
Yeah.
43.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
saying not 43, I'm saying 40.
Oh, okay.
So I'm saying 40, and then the senior companion program. I don't know if I can really speak to that.
I've seen some positive impact from that. With experiences of going to patients' houses. But things are always changing, and that was several years ago, but I do see that it's beneficial. I mean, it was very beneficial to the one patient who had it that lived in government subsidized housing downtown, so. She would cook and clean for him, and, I mean, a hard worker, and she was a senior companion. It was good for her too.
And you know, that, and another sensitivity I have in this is, there's some of these programs that are just as, that are low income housing, and this is a service on top of that. And those communities have a greater need.
Yeah.
Has been my experience.
So 20,
Even at 20.
leaving them around 20, yeah, 20.
I think.
Is there any thought about why? 25 was just under 20,000 and request was 87,000.
Well, I think, I think people kind of tend to shoot for the moon
Well,
sometimes.
that's a straight, yeah, I'm sure, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I would like to be able to fund everybody at 100%, we're not able to. So, it's 3:30 now. Taylor needs to leave at 5, so I wanna,
It's 4:30.
oh, I'm sorry. It's 4:30.
It's 3:30 on the clock.
It's 3:30 on that clock.
It sure is.
Okay, it's 4:30 now. Regardless, we have a half an hour before we lose Taylor, so let's see if we can, move right along here.
Meals on Wheels.
Wheels on Wheels.
$75 maybe. I don't like cutting it, but
Let's try 175. Let's try that.
With that being sort of a high priority, with that money left.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
I'll look into it. Home repair, I don't know about this one. It's important.
Mountain housing.
Yeah, Mountain
Yeah.
View.
Well, they also have different funding. I don't know them as well as others, but I don't think they're totally dependent on us.
And would they be getting, I mean, with the funding coming in from Helene Recovery, might they also be benefiting from that?
I have no earthly idea.
And
Some of that money might be up in the air too, money that's
Yeah.
promised. Give it a shot at 55. 50.
50?
50.
Okay, 50.
Maybe hold these guys 75,000 for daycare and 115,000 for day help.
Yeah, yeah, 75 and 115, I like that.
Pisco, what did we decide we were gonna do?
Well, we already gave him a haircut.
Yeah, what's our, what's the,
They leave it at 19,750 is average.
15,000?
I'm fine with 15.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Here's the information and options, which
We got a lot of feedback from them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I wasn't all that clear to me what they were trying to say. I know there's a need for advocacy out there. Don't get me started on that one, but the question is whether or not that's what they've been doing. You know, when they're referring people to Billy. Why referring?
Well, I heard that they have have a little bit of confusion in what they're doing, but they're resolving it. Does that make sense?
well, I see them also as a kind of a referral.
Yeah.
And when I read through those responses, that's kind of what I heard, that, you know, somebody calls in with an issue and then
Mm-hmm.
some of them they can resolve quickly, but others of them escalate to like even a home visit or something.
And people who need services, who haven't grown up with services or had them as their normal life. You know, they need help, but where do you go to get it?
Right.
And if they're sick, or they're disabled, they may not be able to.
I think this is a really important service. Because of that very reason, my sense is that this county is really fragmented in terms of where you go to get services. People, but these are complex, not just these, but service for older adults, for disabled people. It's complex stuff. And so that's one point. Second point, this is just a very tiny little recent experience. We're putting together something with Ollie that I was working on. I said, oh, in fact, I called somebody here, called somebody in Council on Aging. What I got at Council on Aging was in their information referral area was a recording. And they said, you know, sometimes you get a recording and they say, we're busy, we'll call you back. They never called me back. And I worried about that. And that's just one person in one moment, but I thought, that's unfortunate.
Well,
I'd like to interject that my,
Deb? Deb, did you push mute by mistake?
me?
Yeah,
No, no, I wanted to interject that I know two people that have very similar experiences with information and options over at Council on Aging. And I'm starting to feel like what I'm hearing is they are basically an extension of 211 or very similar to their services. And maybe they just don't have enough people to answer the calls and return. I'm not sure. But I just wanted to make that comment that I also am concerned with where that program is going and where it's at right now.
Do we throw 100,000 at it and cross our fingers and hope it's not wasted?
And I have to say, some of the stuff that I'm reading and understanding that they do feels like it's a way of care navigation that some residents might get when they go to their primary care provider. They might have an interdisciplinary team that has a social worker or a nurse navigator that helps with this kind of thing. Or let's say they got home health services after being in the hospital and they're really sick. They can have a social worker come out to the home, pay for that through Medicare and Medicaid, and they would help them navigate some of this. So it's not the only option out there, but it is a little bit confusing to me because I don't feel like it's very reliable.
And when you're advocating for someone who is cognitively impaired or too sick with high executive function, you're dealing with a lot of complexity and you need a constructively pushy personality to get through it. And a lot of people just don't have that in their lives, even if they've got a friend or a family member to help them. So what they're doing is necessary. I have no doubt about that, but if they get all caught up in institutional nonsense. You're not gonna get the job done anyway. It's just one institution trying to talk to other institutions that want you to go away, if they can make you go away, so. I don't know.
90? I don't know. I mean, or leave it at 100 and monitor.
Maybe 75,000 and see what they do with it.
Well, but if we're worried about the quality of services, I'm not sure making it that low is gonna help. I mean, we can. I don't know if we have processes for putting people on probation, but. Maybe $100,000 and say that. You know, tell them that, you know, we have heard some concerning things and hope
I,
that-
excuse me, I like that, and I
Yeah.
think we need to then have some way to have a conversation with them about what we're hearing.
Sounds like a nice number.
100,000. So. Zach, if you could pull over. The bottom. At the bottom, pull over yeah. That
And the total.
and the total, and then this, and then. Yeah, that,
About 519,000.
and then bring in the 1.7. Yeah. And so what is open? Congregate dining,
Half a dog.
And in-home aid. $100,000 congregate dining. Okay, let's see where the balance is after that.
Yeah.
and the one at the 319.
But the swept it all up, right?
Yeah, that does it. Yeah,
Is it being counted or counting ahead? That way you pick 319 out of the end.
No, because I saw it calculated at the bottom.
Oh.
She's magic.
She's really good. No, I'm not really good. I just been so used to looking at spreadsheets.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, yeah. Oh. I don't know what to say.
You can't argue with these numbers. We wish we had more, but we don't.
Who up there have we done, I'm just sort of pondering this, who have we done the most harm to? Of those, I mean, is there anything we would want to correct?
Well, why don't we hide, why don't we, Zach, could you please hide the columns N all the way over to last year's allocation?
The call got whacked a little bit.
Meals on Wheels went down a little bit, I think.
Community health workers. Meals on Wheels is down a bit. Home repair.
I think those are all reasonable. I mean, is there anybody there we're going to put out of business?
I don't think so.
The biggest hit was fiscal legal, but I think we agreed that we could afford it more than just about everybody else. Anybody very uncomfortable with anything?
No.
Think we're.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Yeah, look at it.
Okay,
Motion that we go with them?
Oh,
second,
Second,
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No opposition? Okay, we have our final recommendations
This
for
is
fiscal year 2026.
so much better, this meeting,
Thank
Yeah.
you.
doing it. Can't
Yeah.
leave the room on Zoom.
It is.
Yeah, so
Yes. Yes,
that was good process.
yes. I want to thank Greg for that.
That's auspicious. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I do. Okay. Now back to, if we can close this out and get Billy back, so she can help us with the mountain care rate increase.
So Susan, real quick, can you send that spreadsheet that Allison and copy me and, cause
I'll
Allison,
send it to all y'all.
yeah, cause Allison needs to get it into the budget office this Friday. I
Okay.
won't be back then.
Well, Zach said he would send it to everyone, so,
Thank
That's
you.
okay, Billy, help refresh our memories about Mountain Care's request for rate increase. Please, if you can.
Billy, you're on mute.
They asked for, so it costs them $42 per trip, and they asked for an increase of $3 per trip. To $45 a trip, so that would, from our last meeting, then as Zach said, you know, if you increase the unit rate, it's in arrears, so $34.98 would be added way back to the beginning of the fiscal year, and the committee decided that they wouldn't make the decision at last month's meeting, but they were gonna look at the units of service report for March and decide whether to grant them an increase of $3 per trip.
Can you do that just for the new fiscal year and not have to get into all the craziness with the retroactive reimbursement for this year?
Well, it's just last year. So in FY 25, they received their allocation, but then they found out that Mountain Mobility increased the rate per trip, and that's why they're asking.
So if you pull out or bring out from the stack of papers, if you look at Mountain Care. General transportation, so you can go across and see that the unit rate was 42 and they're asking for 45, right? Billing.
Yes.
45, and they budgeted 1,635. They've already provided 1,550. So we're talking. So we're talking about if we put the rate at 45 and we maintain the budgeted units at 1,635, then we're talking additional basically $5,000.
And they said if the rate per trip isn't increased, they anticipate going over their allocation by 12,000 to 16,000. But then it was said last meeting that they were underspent in adult day health and adult daycare, so that money could be transferred over, but I can't remember.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Billy, because if you just pull your straight edge down there at what, 65% and 62%, and they should be at 75%. So do we?
They can essentially fund it internally, why not? are reallocating monies that they're not using.
I mean, that's what it looks like to me. I mean, Zach, you're more the units of service expert, so. Would that require them to do a new, whatever form number it is?
Anytime when unit rates change, anytime money is moving, a new budget has to be submitted.
Okay.
They would have to do that anyway, if they got the rate increase, right?
Yes.
So they're committed to doing that, so if they get a rate increase, so ask them to resubmit budgets that basically move the money internal to them. That makes sense.
It's up to y'all.
Yes.
In the past, y'all are the ones who decide if when a agency relinquishes funding, if it can stay in-house and go to a different program or should be reallocated to an overperforming program outside of that.
So could we sanction the rate increase and ask them to fund it out of one of the other two or both of those programs? I'm seeing a lot of heads shaking. So, okay, let me just clarify. We are saying that we are fine with a rate increase to $45. Period. End of sentence. That we would ask that be funded by, a change in the budget of the two other programs that are currently not underfunded, but not meeting goals.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I may make a motion that the rate increase and that we ask them to use the funds from the other two programs to even out.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay,
So. Okay. So why
Does
would
that make
they
sense?
ask if they could have done this to begin with? Why would they ask the advisory committee if we could have moved the money around to begin with from the other programs?
why wait a minute. Are you saying why didn't they do it themselves?
I'm saying that they asked for a rate increase of $45 per trip. But we could have just, I don't know, they could have just moved the money around,
It would have to.
you know, so why did they? So to me, it seems like you didn't approve that because it's coming from the budgets of their other programs. So to me, it seems like the rate increase really wasn't approved because it's coming out of the other programs, which has money they are underspent, but.
They have to refile new budgets for everything. I think that's how it flows. through.
Right, I know.
But assuming that they were gonna lose the money that they didn't use already, then they got to keep it this way. Because otherwise they couldn't have just done it on their own, right? Because like Zach said, they would have had to have put in a whole new thing. They couldn't just move the money around themselves.
Well, they have to fill out a 732 anyway. No matter what they do.
So this could be confusion on their part in bringing this here, but I think what we've done is said, here's the way, what we think, how you should handle this, and the ball is now back in their court. with some direction in terms of how to do
Okay.
it.
What I'm hearing is we actually are not approving their increase. We're just telling them we disapprove it and to use it from inside. Their own, moving their own money.
That's what I guess that's what I'm trying to say, but I didn't say it as eloquently.
I don't feel eloquent today, but okay.
Well, it's a way for them, otherwise we would say, if you increase, if we would say to them, you can increase the rate, but then you have to back reimburse for the whole year, then the question becomes, where's that money coming from? This way, you're saying, okay, we need to find, we know that you're underutilized in some of your other programs. So rework the budgets for the three of them and try to find the difference from money that you were allocated for these other programs. Otherwise, if they didn't have these other programs and they wanted a rate increase, if they went over their grant by $5,000, they'd be looking to us to try to push them extra money from some other program that's underutilized. If that makes sense.
Okay, what I would like to say is, think about, it's not April, but think about if it's the middle of, it's at June. At June month end. At June month end, given the trend that we see here on the units of service in March, would they increase services so that they will be fully spent? That's a question. That's kind of throwing that question at you, Billy. You see you see where I'm trying to go with it? That either we give it to them now, or we wait to see until the scramble at the end.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, they have to fill out a 732, whether the committee recommended it or we reallocate the money from the other programs. But to me, the way I'm thinking is that the committee didn't said no to their request. So that's the way that it's in my mind, that's what it seems like to me. Zach, am I off base on this?
I mean. I'm trying to wrap my head around it too, a little still. The increase to,
Maybe look at it this way. Let's forget that they have these other two programs that are underutilized. Let's assume it's just this one particular program. And they wanted a rate increase. That would put them for the year over by, let's say, $5,000. Where would that $5,000 come from? If they exhaust the year's grant and they need another $5,000 for the same year,
it would come from another underutilized
someplace else.
provider, so perhaps the
housing and home improvement.
15,000 that's gonna be given up by
Right.
United Community Development or something like that.
But this way, because we know that they have two other programs that are underutilized, they can redo those budgets and make it, you're doing the same thing, but within the same organization. So to my mind, it seems cleaner. Because what if come at the end of the year, we give them the rate increase, they're short by $5,000 and we don't have another program from which we can take $5,000 to give it to them.
Well, at this point, we do. Because we haven't made any reallocations. Okay. I hear Billy and I hear Deborah. The compromise would be, give them the rate increase, assume that it's gonna come from the United Community Development, 15,000, and see where they end up with their other two programs. So that means they only have to do one Form 732. Is that correct?
Are we projecting they will underutilized at the end of the fiscal year?
we are projecting that United Community Development will not spend $15,000.
But these guys we're talking about.
These guys will spend over for transportation by around, I don't know, if they maintain it the budget, which they probably will break that budget, it's gonna be over what was it, 5,000 something,
Change, yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, 4,905. So if you multiply 3 times the 1635 from grant budgeted units, you get the $4,905. So give them the rate increase. I assume that it's gonna come from United Community Development, and then the scramble is on at the end of the month.
Okay, that makes it more clear.
Okay.
So
All right,
should we do a motion?
yeah, we're doing a motion that we're gonna approve the rate increase. Do I hear a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, rate increase approved.
Okay, thank you. And one last thing, so I can get the contracts going. Buncombe County contracts amended to increase to $5,000 for day stay and 18,000 for on track. So I can get that going and talk to the 2 providers about it, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Not that we wanna chase anybody out or, adjourn before folks want to. Are there any comments? I mean, do we have any unfinished business for today? Comments, questions, anything?
Do we know about the county supplemental yet?
We know about dates, that'll be exciting.
Well, I know that I'm gonna go to the public meeting. That's about all I know. I forget what the date was, but it's next month sometime. Yeah. Don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna know until after May 6th. And if it's approved May 6th, then we hope to open up the BCSAF application.
And we're gonna try to get it all done for the start of the next fiscal year, right?
Oh, no, I don't think it'll be possible, because they would have to apply. Yeah. So,
Right.
yeah. So I guess what's to April, we'll see each other in May.
We're gonna Zoom it in May or? I'm here in May.
You guys tell me.
I think in person's more efficient, but that's me.
Yeah, I agree. I think in person makes a lot more sense.
Particularly when we're doing this kind of work. We have some of the times of the year we don't do this kind of work. The only other thing I would add is that I think since we hopefully will have some more allocation work to do, but at some point to spend some time just pondering how we might do more advocacy in this time of strange funding issues and
We definitely need to do more advocacy in this climate.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm on somebody's list in case they ever start chasing after people.
Well, I know I'm on the newsletters for, Tom Tillis and for Chuck Edwards, and I'm getting their information and surveys, so,
And the other one, Ted, but I guess Ted, yeah.
yeah, so,
I'm at the American Society on Aging conference, and we've been talking about advocacy for aging services a lot, and making phone calls to the elected officials is better than emails because they keep a record of the phone calls that they receive. So, and then if you keep calling and calling, they have your name, so they'll pick up, they might pick up sooner, but it's more effective to call than an email letter or writing a letter. So, I'm on it.
Well, we're hoping for the best.
Yeah.
That's all we can do, hope for the best. And there's nothing else. I want to thank all of you so much. It's an amazing crew. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Welcome, but thank you also.
So, okay, if there's nothing else, I guess we can adjourn.
Have fun in Florida, Billy.
Enjoy the pool.
Oh, thank you. That'll be my only respite this week.
Say hi to Jen for us.
Yeah.
hi to-
Okay, I will.
Okay, bye.